Hello again. Look who's back.
Hello. Thanks for having me back.
Always a pleasure to have you.
Yeah.
And
our fifth collaboration, I believe.
Don't know if the Ecto Cooler Crystal Pepsi one counts, but
True.
Yeah, I think this is like 5 or 6 for us, and as I've shown throughout the year so far, this is kind of the year where I try to do anniversary reviews, and
a lot of big ones.
Anyone who watches me knows from about a month ago, this year is the 40th anniversary of Star Wars, but it's also the 30th anniversary of what is probably the greatest Star Wars parody ever, Spaceballs. What do you think of Spaceballs? You said this was the first time you'd seen it all the way through.
Yeah, I had seen portions of it. We weren't allowed growing up because it was... The language is a little bit too much for my parents, but I did see portions of it on a sleepover, I think, back when I was a kid. But overall, it is classic Mel Brooks. And there's good with that, there's bad with that, but it's a decent film.
A little bit. This was the first Mel Brooks movie I ever really got to watch, and like you, I wasn't really allowed to watch it at first. I popped it in when I was 11 or 12, I can't remember, and we made it to the asshole scene before my mom was like, okay, you're not watching this.
It does seem kind of tame by today's standards, but...
A little bit. I do think this is a surprising... There's a surprising amount of profanity for a PG movie. It's not the absolute worst, but still you think, this is PG?
And I'm wondering, when did PG-13 come in? Because it may have snuck in right before.
This was actually about 2 years after the PG-13 rating. Despite that rating having been introduced, this movie still got away with a lot, including near the end. I don't know if you noticed, Rick Moranis says "fuck" in one scene.
I did catch that. One of the movies that I watched more recently that I was kind of surprised at the level of language was Back to the Future. I mean, I watched that with my kids, and it's like, whew. The language there was a little, not quite as bad as this, but...
Another one that's not quite as bad, but still surprising, I think, would be the original Short Circuit.
Yeah. I mean, and again, that was PG, so...
Hey.
Not today.
It's the 80s. You can get away with a lot more back then.
Now, I thought this movie was made earlier in the 80s, so I'm kind of surprised that it was 1987, being its anniversary year here this year.
Yeah, came out in 1987, 10 years after the original Star Wars, and Mel Brooks had already tackled many genres with his parody films, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, and this was actually the first film he had made at the time in 6 years. The last one before this was History of the World Part 1. And
that's probably my favorite Mel Brooks film. Very
Monty Python-ish in its style. And that movie ended with almost a tease for Spaceballs. History of the World Part 1 ended with a fake trailer for Part 2, which they said will have Hitler on ice, a Viking funeral, and Jews in space. And then we see a Star Wars battle with ships that look like the Star of David, featuring an early version, it's not the same song, but it has the same style as the Men in Tights song. And I could just see, after seeing Spaceballs, I could just see that's almost like a tease for this movie.
They did have some Druidish references here.
There's a scene...
Schwartz be with you.
There's a scene where the main princess character, their Princess Leia spoof, says, "I am the princess of the Druids," and our Han Solo character, Lone Star, says, "Oh, that's all we need, a Druish princess." And then John Candy as Barf, the Chewbacca character, goes, "Funny, she doesn't look Druish."
Always pushing the envelope.
Mel Brooks said that that was one of a few jokes that he's felt both ashamed but proud of for putting in his movies.
Of all the ones to choose from.
I mean, this is a guy who did a music video for a very early rap song called... I forget the name. I think it was To Be or Not to Be, but everybody calls it the Hitler rap, where Mel Brooks is dressed up as Hitler, and Mel Brooks could do a pretty good Hitler, and one of the lyrics was, "Don't be stupid, be a smarty. Come on down and join the Nazi party."
I don't think I'll show that in class anytime soon, but oh well.
But anyway,
I have to keep my job.
Yeah, he has a day job.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie, it was a parody of Star Wars, and Mel Brooks decided, since sci-fi was the only genre he had yet to tackle, it would be a good thing.
I think the Star Wars spoof was the heaviest, although there were other elements in there. There was a little Raiders of the Lost Ark,
A little
Star Trek, yeah.
And at the end, Planet of the Apes.
And then you just have Andy Alien.
Yep.
So, the gratuitous alien reference.
That was a very random scene.
Yeah.
Obviously, he had to go to George Lucas to get permission, and George Lucas was actually a huge fan of Mel Brooks' earlier films, so he gave him free reign to do whatever he wanted here.
Well, that's nice.
His one condition, though, and this led to the famous joke in the film, was that there would be no Spaceballs merchandise.
Oh, so we just plaster the whole film with the merchandise.
Yeah, and for anyone who's not familiar with Mel Brooks, he is notorious for doing fourth wall jokes. And one of the fourth wall jokes he does here is the characters are all holding Spaceballs movie merchandise. Like Spaceballs toilet paper.
That was my favorite. Placemats.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we see this character in one scene, one of Mel Brooks' characters, showing off Spaceballs the coloring book, which if you look closely is actually a Transformers coloring book.
Oh?
Spaceballs the lunchbox, and then he holds up Spaceballs the flamethrower.
Kids love it. Yeah.
And
of course the yogurt character had the merchandising booth set up as well.
yeah, in his lair. And
A little Wizard of Oz-ish. Yeah.
at the end when he's like, "Oh, what a world." And before we forget, the storyline to this movie, and something I really like about Mel Brooks' movies, is even though that they're parodies of well-known films, for his spoof movies, he usually creates an almost original storyline with them. To the point where, after a while, you almost forget, at least I do, that this is a parody film.
Until he sneaks those fourth wall jokes in, like you said.
Yeah. Like, the story here is that Planet Spaceball, run by the evil President Scroob, played by Mel Brooks, is planning to steal the air of its neighbor planet, Planet Druidia. And
which they can and sell in one of those scenes there. They had the Perrier.
Yeah, like a can of air that you just breathe in.
I thought that was pretty creative.
And in order to get the air, they try to kidnap the princess, played by Daphne Zuniga.
I think so, yes. Zuniga?
Yeah. Daphne Zuniga. Yeah, that's how you pronounce it. The king of Planet Druidia, King Roland, played by Dick Van Patten, hires space scavenger, I guess, Lone Star, played by Bill Pullman, and his sidekick, Barf, a Mog, half man, half dog, played by the late great John Candy, to save the princess.
Probably my favorite character in the movie.
Well, of course, it's John Candy.
Comic relief, yep.
And John Candy, the way he looks here, like, it's not too much of a drastic makeover. No. He mostly has like a lot of hair, dog ears, and a little patch on his eye.
Little patch, yeah, that's it.
And a tail.
The tail is mine of its own.
And the ears that move on their own and the tail that does its own thing. They were remote.
Are they animatronic or?
They were remote controlled.
Okay.
And I gotta give John Candy props for this. Those ears and tail, they were powered by a 30-pound battery.
Oh, wow.
That he had to wear on his back throughout the whole shoot.
It's carrying a baby on your back.
That must have been killer. And the movie kind of becomes about the Spaceballs chasing Lone Star, Barf, and the princess, and her loyal slave bot, I guess. That's kind of what C-3PO was. Voiced by Joan
Rivers, yeah.
And, she doesn't sound as bad as she usually did.
No, she's not nearly as annoying as she is in real life.
Well, was, and...
was, yeah.
the voice of the robot character named Dot Matrix after...
Clever name.
Yeah, after the old printer. Yeah, it's Joan Rivers doing the voice, and the body is done by Laureen Yarnell Jansson.
No?
Hard to pronounce names. As they try to flee the Spaceballs, they encounter a mystic wizard, know-it-all as he calls himself, named Yogurt. Also played by Mel Brooks. He's going for dual roles here.
Plain yogurt. Yeah.
And the makeup that Mel Brooks wore as Yogurt, apparently Mel Brooks had a very allergic reaction to it.
It's like gold dust almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Yogurt scenes all had to be shot out of order from everything else because it was so difficult for Mel Brooks to go through the makeup. And also, you notice how he's shorter than everybody?
Yeah.
He was just, he was walking on his knees throughout the whole thing.
Oh, to be Yoda. Yeah.
Yeah. So that really put a strain.
Yeah.
It's not the worst, like, the guy, John Rhys Davis, who played Gimli in Lord of the Rings, he was allergic to prosthetics.
Really?
So throughout the 18-month shoot on Lord of the Rings, he had to get...
That's the worst 18 months ever.
He had to get injections every day.
Huh.
Ow.
That's a commitment.
The two main villains above President Scrooge are Dark Helmet, played by the 5'4" Rick Moranis, and Colonel Sanders, played by George Weiner. This was very interesting the first time I saw it years ago, to see Rick Moranis playing this type of character. Like, I know the part of the joke is that he's so evil and angry, and he's so short, but still, Rick Moranis really was able to play that type of character pretty well.
I thought he was pretty effective. He was charismatic.
Yeah, and all I had known him from before this movie was the Honey I
Shrunk the Kids, yeah.
Yeah.
Same with me.
And also Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
His design is pretty funny. He has a huge oversized helmet. He's wearing what looks like spandex and silky shorts and a necktie. Big, all black. And whenever he has the helmet down, like his visor, he speaks in this deep voice.
It's hard to breathe.
Yep. And when it's up, he's wearing his usual glasses and speaks in his normal voice, but very angry. And also, there's some pretty cool cameos here. We have Michael Winslow from the Police Academy movies. He's a guy who's very talented for doing sound effects. In this one scene as a radar tech. And Mel Brooks said that every single sound effect in that scene is Winslow, and he thinks he pretty much saved him $1,000 on sound editing. I don't think... I tried to do the imitations of those sounds myself.
Yeah,
once.
I would not be able to do that.
Like, the most I can do is... Yeah.
It's like old-timey radio.
No one can do what Michael Winslow does. Lone Star and Barf are motivated to help the princess early on because they owe money to a gangster, named in this film Pizza the Hut. And you said you thought Pizza the Hut was disgusting.
Oh, it looks disgusting. He was melting. Yeah.
Me personally, that scene kind of... Every time I watch that scene, I kind of feel like I want some pizza.
Pepperoni dripping into his eye.
It was his mouth. And in the Pizza the Hut is played by Dom DeLuise, I believe. Voice, and I think he was wearing the suit for that character. Stephen Tobolowsky. I don't know if you know the name. He's a character actor. He's been in 100 or 200 different things.
Yeah, I don't know.
He plays that Spaceball soldier who's like, "You idiots! These are not them! You've captured their stunt doubles!"
That was one of my favorite, like you said, fourth wall moments there.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes too. Like, the heroes are running and trying to escape, and they jump through a closing door, and the Spaceballs thinks they capture them, then they turn around and it's not them.
But they're all very close.
Yeah.
Caricatures. I especially like the Barf character.
Yeah, big guy with a mustache.
Mm-hmm.
And the last cameo is... a scene at the end where they're in a diner, where after going through the parking lot and we see a quick cameo from the Millennial Falcon, we go inside and one of the people in this diner is John Hurt. And as he's eating, he suddenly starts retching and coughing, and then all of a sudden, an alien pops out of his chest.
It's very reminiscent of the same scene from Alien. Yeah.
Yep, and he's the same actor, and as that happens, he looks at it and goes, "Oh no, not again."
Because he had the special.
And then the alien first actually looks a little threatening, and then the alien puts on a little straw hat and suddenly starts singing, "Hello, my baby, hello, my darling, hello, my ragtime gal," and everybody is just staring at it like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm pretty sure was most of the audience's reaction.
Probably. It's a little bizarre, but...
Out of all the Mel Brooks movies I've seen, I think Spaceballs, History of the World Part 1, and Young Frankenstein are my personal favorites.
Mm-hmm. I'd put this probably third on that list, behind those two.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I love Blazing Saddles, but I do think it's a little overrated.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that it's not really as much of a parody of the Western genre as it is a satire on racism.
Mm-hmm.
And Robin Hood Men in Tights is a lot of fun, but it was near the end of Mel Brooks' career.
Yeah, that one hasn't really held up very well.
And one of his lesser-known films that I really enjoy is High Anxiety.
Oh, I've never seen that one.
It's a parody of Alfred Hitchcock films.
Mm-hmm.
And like George Lucas, Hitchcock himself gave Mel Brooks blessing and wished him luck on the project.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I'm pretty sure you don't know about this one, Silent Movie.
Oh no, haven't heard that one either.
It's a parody of, silent films.
Old Hollywood?
It's about Mel Brooks stars as a once great but now struggling director who brings an idea to a studio chief saying he'll make a silent movie, the first one in over 50 years. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is this whole movie is actually without dialogue. It's all title cards. And some sound effects, music. But yeah, we never hear anyone actually talk in this.
Huh.
Actually, there is one single word in Silent Movie, and guess who says it?
I don't know.
Marcel.
Oh?
The world-famous mime.
Mime, yeah. There were some mimes in this movie as they were escaping the exploding ship.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And circus clowns, and
Ronald McDonald.
a bear.
And a bear.
And for anyone who thinks that's completely out of nowhere, there is a part earlier where they mentioned there is a zoo on board.
I think they just sit around the table and think of, oh, who could we have escaping the ship? Oh, we'll have that bear from the zoo.
The pizza guy.
Yeah, mimes, Ronald McDonald. Why the hell not?
And the bearded lady.
Bearded lady.
That's my favorite one of the escaping people. She's like, to Dark Helmet, "I am the bearded lady. What are you, one of the freaks?" And then she shoves her tits in his face and he falls down. And then she escapes, and he yells, "Come back here, you fat bearded bitch!" And all those escape pod shots, like, not only did George Lucas give his blessing for the project, but he liked the script so much when he gave it a quick run-through that he loaned Industrial Light and Magic to do some of the special effects for this movie.
Oh, was that one of the scenes?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like, they recreated the escape pod shot.
Mm-hmm.
And Industrial Light also did the Schwartz sabers.
Oh. Yeah, they looked pretty good.
Yep, and
some of the, I don't know, some of the graphics you could see were a little low budget, but
Yeah, I mean, this was Mel Brooks said in the commentary this was his highest budgeted movie at $25 million, mostly to cover the cost of the special effects. And I can see it at a few moments, but for the most part, I think the special effects in this movie are actually kind of cheap looking. But it is a parody film, so
It's supposed to be.
So I can excuse it a bit.
But in those two moments, yeah, you could definitely tell it was a little bit of a different level of quality.
The moments where I think the special effects were at their worst was when they go to the Spaceballs prison and the ship flies in, and it looks like a big cartoon. Kind of like that scene with the shuttle in Star Trek The Final Frontier.
Yeah. The sets were pretty good, though. I mean, the sets and the costumes, they were pretty elaborate.
The sets for, like, the cave and the ships. Yeah, like, when we got to the bits where they actually had the actors, the sets did look pretty good.
I thought they looked good.
And,
there was a lot, and there was a lot of costumes throughout the film, a lot of different types, so...
And that opening shot with the spaceship, where it's going on and on...
2 minutes. Yeah.
Mel Brooks said in the commentary that if he had his way, he would have made a 98-minute movie of just the panning shot of the ship.
True Star Trek fashion.
That would have been very artsy.
Star Trek 1.
But not sure if that would go over well. As far as the gags go, there's some pretty hilarious jokes here. Very smart scenes, and not every scene works for me, but like every Mel Brooks movie, for every scene or joke that doesn't work, there's about 3 or 4 more that do. Like a few of the scenes that just focus on Lone Star and the princess, and...
Yeah, they can get a little tedious.
Yeah. But
he's helping to drive the plot.
Yeah. But some of the scenes that I think really did work, like we already said about these are their stunt doubles. And also the scene where Dark Helmet plays with his dolls.
That was very good, yes. Yeah.
That was
his action figures that are prohibited. Yeah.
That whole scene was improvised on the spot by Rick Moranis. Yeah, he said, just give me some dolls and I'll make it up as I go along.
That's pretty genius.
And when it was over... And when the scene ends, George Weiner comes in and he's like, "What?" Holding them.
What did you see?
I didn't see you playing with your dolls again. Mel Brooks has said that his personal favorite of all the gags are, one, the merchandising joke.
Yep. Well, that's a running thing throughout the whole film.
Yeah, but an individual scene, and I agree, I think this is the best scene in the movie, is where the villains are trying to find the heroes. They're having no luck, and Colonel Sanders says, "Get me a cassette of Spaceballs the movie."
Oh yeah, where they look at the film.
And they go to this rack of tapes, and all the tapes before they get to Spaceballs are all of Mel Brooks' previous films. And then Dark Helmet's like, "How can there be a cassette of Spaceballs the movie? We're still in the middle of making it." Well, there's been a new breakthrough in home video, movies that are out before they're finished. And then they take a actual copy of this movie, put it in their VCR, and they fast forward through it, and we get to see in a moment with Dark Helmet that was happening a few scenes ago that he finds embarrassing, and he's like, no, go past this part, this part. In fact, never play this again. And then we get probably the most Inception moment in comedy history, where they're like, alright, play it here. And we see Dark Helmet and Colonel Sanders as they are now on the little video screen. And they're like this.
Yeah.
Look at themselves, they do it on the screen. He's like...
And you could see it in the screens that they were looking at. Yeah. It was good.
And then they just keep going, what am I looking at? When can we go back? How? Where? Who? Just feel like your mind's caving in a little.
My favorite scene was probably the emergency stop scene where he slams into the panel.
Yeah. And before they do that scene where they go into ludicrous speed, he's like, what's the matter, Colonel Sanders? Chicken?
Oh, punny.
Yeah, puns. And George Weiner as Colonel Sanders,
it's serviceable.
And I thought he did a pretty good job. He was the closest thing to a competent bad guy I thought was in this movie. And George Weiner had previously been in To Be or Not to Be, another Brooks film.
He was the straight man.
And another fun gag was when they're in the desert looking for everybody. Thought you could get two good jokes in the desert.
Oh.
They're in their hover vehicle, and Sanders is like, "Okay, prepare to go." And Helmut's like, "Why are you preparing? You're always preparing. Just go. Just go. Sir, you might want to sit down." And then he almost falls out. And then, I love this one. This is one of my old favorites too. Comb the desert.
That was my favorite of the desert scenes.
They're told to comb the desert, and we see them using huge, oversized combs. Yeah, being very literal. And they ask them, "Found anything?" "Nope." "How about you guys?" "Not a thing." And then we see two guys dragging an afro comb. Like, "How about you guys?" And then the guy's like, "We ain't found shit!" And I actually have a copy of the original script of Spaceballs.
Oh.
It was like a Christmas gift. And there's a lot in the original script that didn't make it into the final film. But also a huge difference is there is almost no profanity in the original version. With the exception of a few specific scenes.
So they added in quite a bit.
Like the wedding scene originally had the priest going, "We're gathered here and holy," sees the spaceship. "Shit!" But I guess that was what they thought was a little too much. But one scene that they completely didn't include in the film was after they crashed on the desert planet and Lone Star throws away Princess Vespa's huge, oversized hairdryer, saying it's not needed. The two groups split up, and he and Barf end up in a quicksand part of the desert and almost get eaten by mud monsters. And then Vespa shows up and dries the monster to solid sand or rock using the hairdryer, which is supposed to be the beginning of them warming up to each other.
Oh? Where does he plug it in?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Probably for the best they cut that part out. Would have been, even for Mel Brooks, a little too ridiculous.
Yeah, and then they had, what were they, the Dinks that came in?
Yeah, the Jawa spoof characters. There's not a ton else I can really say about Spaceballs other than I think it's a very good parody of Star Wars. It's well written about 70% of the time. All the actors, I feel, did very adequate jobs. Mel Brooks did a good job as both a villain and a good guy. Bill Pullman was a fun, not quite as good looking take on the Han Solo type of character. John Candy, he is always great in whatever he's in.
Make the film. Bartholomew.
Yeah. And Daphne Zuniga, she did a good job playing a spoiled, rich princess.
I did like the scene with the headphones.
The Princess Leia buns.
Her side buns.
And then it turns out, they're headphones. And Joan Rivers was, like we said...
good for her.
Yeah, it was good for her in this. Rick Moranis, he and John Candy, I feel, are the best people in this movie.
Yes, absolutely. They carried it.
Dick Van Patten, he didn't do much as the king.
He didn't have to.
He was more, I think it was more because he was an old friend of Mel Brooks and he just wanted to give him a role.
Yeah, without Moranis and Candy, I really think it would have been a lot flatter. Because Pullman was kind of, he was alright, but a little vanilla.
I think Mel Brooks said that at one point he tried to get Tom Cruise to play Lone Star. Ooh. Don't know if it would have been any less flatter, but it would have been interesting.
Nick Cage, maybe.
And George Weiner, as I said, he was a pretty good straight man, as you said. And the people behind the scenes include, obviously, Mel Brooks produced and directed it, but he also co-wrote it with Thomas Meehan and Ronnie Graham, who I think had co-written a lot of his movies with him, or a few at least. And this doesn't really have to do with the movie, but there was a novelization of Spaceballs made. And
okay, tell me more.
Guess who wrote the novelization?
I don't know.
R.L. Stine,
Oh,
the Goosebumps author.
yeah.
I haven't read it, but
I didn't know it existed.
that's interesting.
Learn something new every day.
So yeah, George Lucas liked it, Star Wars fans liked it, and even though it insults people who need glasses,
Ooh.
I think they liked it.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely the right time to make the film. About 10 years after Star Wars. You say it was exactly 10 years after?
Yeah, and it was like 4 years after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, so that was the perfect time to make it. Capitalize on the fame.
The only other movie I can think of that's a direct parody of Star Wars that I think comes close to being this good is Fanboys. It's a movie about people going on a road trip in 1999 to see The Phantom Menace before it comes out in theaters.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Because one of their friends has cancer and he won't live to see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little vulgar at times, and some of the humor is arguably a little homophobic, but it is a big love letter to the Star Wars franchise. And I feel like Fanboys and Spaceballs are, if you like Star Wars, I think you'll like those movies. But definitely this movie you will like.
My favorite Star Wars spoof was Phantom Menace. Oh, well. Jar Jar.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Any final words?
No, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I mean, it was serviceable. It was good. You have to really understand the context of when it was made.
Yeah.
A lot of the puns were very funny. There were very funny moments. The overall plot line dragged probably a little bit, but I mean,
About
like
10 minutes too long.
Yeah, Moranis and Candy really carried it. It is worth the watch, as long as you know what you're getting into.
Check it out. See you next time.
All right, enjoy.